Hello and welcome to another video of Vivek Learns. So in this video we are going to solve the recursion problems of PepCoding level 1. So we will be starting with this module, Introduction to Recursion. So let's start the first problem, print decreasing. You are given a positive number n. You are required to print the counting from m to 1. You are required to not use any loops. Complete the body of printing decreasing function to achieve it, right? So let's try to solve this using a recursion. So we'll follow 2 or 3 steps. Like first we'll set some expectation. Right? And I have the expectation that if I give 5 to this print decreasing function that I have, it should print 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That is my expectation. And then we have to set some belief, BLIF. And what is my belief? I believe that if I give 4 this print decreasing function, we'll get 4, 3, 2, 1 printed. And how do you reach from your belief to the expectations, right? So what we do is we just print 5 and then we call the print decreasing of 4. Right? So how we can generalize this in some kind of a formula, right? So what we can do is that we can have S out of n, because we have to call print decreasing function of n, and then we can call print decreasing of n minus 1, right? So we have generalized this now. Yep. So what is this based on, right? So this is based on principle of mathematical induction, right? So you can Google more about that, right? Oh, let's try to code this now. Let me take an input here. Let's see, scanner. Let me copy it from one of my previous problems. Right. So we get a number input and we have to print all the numbers from that number decreasing to 1. So for that what we need to do is that we have to have some kind of function here. So let us have this function here which will be called iteratively, right? And not recursively. We have to call this function recursively, sorry, not iteratively. So once I call this function, I have to give it input as num, right? And then what I have to do is I have to print the n first, and then what I have to do is I have to call that function again, print decreasing of n minus 1, right? So let's try to run this first and see if we get our desired output. But before we run this, we will have to establish some base case. But let's think about the base case afterwards. Let's see if we don't have any base case, so what will happen? It will continue to run in an infinite loop, right? So we have printed from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, but there is no end to this. So that is why we must have gotten stack overflow exception, right? So let me try to explain what is happening. Yep. So let me take a rectangle here. So this is a stack trace, stack, not the stack trace. This is one. This is the second stack. This is the third one, and so on. Yeah. So first, what we do is we have the function call as PD, and we supply it as 5 for your n is equals to 5, right? What this will do is that it will print 5 because we have the first line to be executed here, right? PD5. Once we call PD5, this line will get executed first, right? So let's uh, have that like let's have that like the execution of that line printed as a dot, right? The first or one, like the first line is executed, and for the second line what will happen is we will call the PD4 function. So it will a new stack will be formed, and we'll get the PD4 where n is equals to 4, and then what will happen is we'll print 4. So we'll print 5 and then we'll print 4 here, right? So for the first line what will happen, so this was executed for first one, and for the second line again a new stack will be formed with the function as PD3 n minus 1, right? Here n will be 3, correct? What will happen here now is for the first line what will be printed 3. So let me print that again. And now for the second line again, we'll create another stack which will have PD2 where n is equals to 2, right? For the first line of PD2 execution, what will be printed? 2 will be printed, right? 2 is printed. Not sure why it isn't taking this text box. 2 is printed, right? for the first line. For the second line, we have another method call which will create another stack trace. Stack, not the stack trace, just pd1, which where n is equals to 1. So for the first line, what happens is 1 is printed because n is equals to 1 here, right? So 1 is printed, right? And for the second line, it should keep on going here. N will become 0, then n will become -1, then n will become -2. But what do we want to achieve? We want to stop when n is equals to 1, right? So we can have some kind of base case here to stop the iteration. And how can we have the base case? We can check if n is equals to 1, then we can have some kind of return statement. So what will the return do? It will come here and it will delete this stack, right? And we have nothing to execute here, so it will come here. Because the stack there are no commands, no lines to be executed right now. So once the stack is complete, once all the lines of the method are completed, it will return to the previous method call. And here also all the lines are complete. It will come here. It will delete the stack. After this it will come here because all the lines have been completed, and it will delete this stack, and then it will come to main again, right? Like we have the main method call here. Right. So this is how the working of this particular problem is, right? So let's try to have the base case here. And the base case that we have written was for n is equals to 1 return. If n is equals to 1, then n is equals to 0, right? Not 1. If n is equals to 0, then we start returning. Because if we stop at n is equals to 1, then 1 will not be printed, right? We want 1 to be printed because our expectation is, let me to print from n to 1, like 5 to 1 for this example. So let's try to run this. Say I input 5 and it does print 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, correct? So let's try to solve the next question, which is print increasing. You are given a positive number n. You are required to print the counting from 1 to n. You are required to not use any loops. Complete the body of print increasing function to achieve it. Do not change the signature of the function. Yep. So we'll follow this approach that we had followed in the last one. So here, what our expectation is, we'll give some input number. Let's say we give 5 to the print increasing function. Our expectation is that 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 should be printed. And what is our belief? So we set the belief that when we give 4 to the print increasing function, 1, 2, 3, and 4 is printed. And how do we reach from our belief to our expectations, right? So how do we reach our expectations? So what we can do is we can have print increasing of 4 and then just print 5, right? Print increasing of 4. So this is the belief that we have, and then we can just print 5. So this will get us the desired output that we want. So in general, print increasing, right? So in generalized form, print increasing of n is nothing but print increasing of n minus 1, which is 4 in this case, right? For the problem that we saw. And we have to print n, right? So let's try to code this part, right? Print increasing. We'll just rename this now. Yep, so let's try to code it again. So what was our generalized form? We call the print increasing with n minus 1 and then we print n. So let me try to do that. We call print increasing n minus 1 and then we print n, right? So what will this do, right? So when, let's take a scenario for n is equals to 3. So what will this do is when n is equals to 3, it will call print increasing of 3 and then print increasing of 3 will call print increasing of 3 will call print increasing of 2, then print increasing of 2 will call print increasing of 1, and then print increasing of 1 will call print increasing of 0, and then the cycle continues. But we want to stop at some base case, and let's try to identify what is that base case. So if I try to run this now, we'll get a stack overflow exception because there is no end. The, the program doesn't know when do we have to stop. So to tell the program when does it have to stop, we have to establish some kind of base case. So let's try to see how the stack trace is formed again, right, using this problem. Me, how do you delete this then? How do you select it? Yes. Yep. Let me try to have a stack trace again. So consider this as the stack and let me have some stack traces here. 2, 3. Okay, so let's consider that we have called the print increasing function with the input 4. So print increasing with the input 4, right? And when this function is called for the first when the first line is executed, what will happen is, like, this is the first line. It will call print increasing of n minus 1, which is print increasing of 3, right? Let me also have the n value written here. Yeah, so n is nothing but 4 here, right? Where do I have the text box? And this won't change for a stack, right? And n is 3 here. Okay, so when the first statement of this method is executed, another stack will be created and it will have the value something like pi of 2, because we are calling with n minus 1, and here n is equals to 2. So when the first line of this method call is executed, then we have something like pi of 1, n is equals to 1. And when the first line of this method is executed, we'll have pi of 0. And here n is equals to 0, right? And if we don't stop here, this loop will go on, and that is why we'll get a stack overflow exception, which we don't want, right? So I think when n is equals to 0 will be a good base case, right? So we will have an if condition to check if n is equals to 0, and then we'll return from there. So what we are doing when we return, right? So let's try to figure that out. So let's say we return from n is equals to 0, we come to this stack, right? And there are two lines to this method, right? Correct? So the second line will be executed now. What is the second line? The second line says you have to print n, system.out.println n, correct? So what it will do is it will print n, and n is 1 here, so it will print 1. Okay, and after that this stack will be deleted because there are no further statements in this method after this. And after this it will return to this, right? And here the second statement will be executed, which says print 2. So 2 will be printed, and there are no further statements to this method, so this will be deleted from the stack. After this it will come here and it will print 3 for the second line, right? And the stack is deleted after this because there are only two statements. And after this it will come here, it will execute the second line of this method, which is print n, which is printing 4. And that is how 1, 2, 3, 4 will be printed. And after this stack will also be deleted from the stack. The stack frame will be deleted. So this is how we'll achieve the output that we want. So we'll have the base case as n is equals to 0, then return, right? Let me run this. For 5, so it will print from 1 to 5, right? Correct. So yeah, in this video we saw two examples of recursion, so print decreasing and print increasing. So in the next video, we'll try to solve some other problems. So see you guys there. Bye bye.